Collar cam. Name. Tony. Date. Redacted. Time. Redacted.
Rita said you were a good listener. And I have to say, I think she was right, man. You know who else was a good listener? Grandma. Man, I hadn't thought about her in so long. There wasn't a day that went by here when I didn't think of her. But I guess when I moved to the city, my mind just filled up with so many new things. There wasn't any more room for her. Kinda sad, really. Now that I'm back, all those memories just find their way back too, I suppose. And you know, just like you, she never said a word. I can't think of one time when she said boo. She didn't need words. She didn't need us either. It was almost like we weren't even around. She just kept her head down and did her thing. If you wanted to help out, she would notice and correct you if you were doing something wrong. She never asked for any help, but she never refused it either. She laughed a lot. Oh man, great laugh. We would watch tapes in the basement a time or two. Just the funny stuff. That's all she was into, really. It was the early days of my highlights collection back then. Couple tapes of the funniest failures. Just one after the other. It was almost too much. One of the tapes was so good, we would just be rolling and crying, laughing so hard. Man, those were good times. And just me and her most of the time. I feel like I've always been making tapes. Don't really remember times when I wasn't. I could never really read that good. Still can't read that good. But I always could look and listen real good. Guess that's why I was always taping. After Grandma left, I pulled out the cookbook Rita made. I had to get her to help me out with the words and numbers. And still, we could never make anything like Grandma did. Never. Over and over I would try, and I just couldn't get it right. I kind of blamed it on Rita. Like she must have not been watching or wrote something down wrong. I kind of blamed myself, though, because I should have been taping her. Don't have nearly enough tapes of those days. LLU had probably given me a taper back then I could have used, too. Was probably too busy clunking around with my car. Oh, that's a sore memory right there. On the last day I was working on the fucking thing. Just turned her over and she was purring real nice. I still had her up on the ramps and just went back under the front to check for any leaks. Then I see some shadows and hear some footsteps. I look over and Nate's foot leaves the floor and the door shuts. I hear the gears shift, and all of a sudden this squealing just tears from the back wheels. And I'm just in shock, right? I can see the car starting to come off the ramps, so I start to slide out as fast as I can. The front bumper comes down and just whacks me across the forehead as the car screeched out in the street. By the time I got back up, through the smoke and the stars in my eyes, she's humming on down the street. Last time I saw her, she looked damn good, man. Didn't get a look at the driver, though. Nate wasn't around, and I asked him about it the next day. Pretty sure he just started swinging at me for asking him. Left her alone after that. It was right around that time that Grandma and LLU left too. Like, what are the fucking chances? Same fucking day. What are the chances? Pretty good, I guess. Sorry, bad joke. I probably wouldn't be able to make that one until a couple years ago. I was fucked up for a while, man. Crazy times. Yeah, that was a real fucked up year, man. Couple years. Fucking decade. Man, I barely left the basement. The fucking people and lawyers coming by. It was fucking crazy times, man. I didn't know shit. Still don't know shit. I mean, I know a little bit more now, but not much, man. Nate ended up with a whole heap of LLU tapes after that. He always had a way of getting what he wanted. Some wild, wild shit on those tapes, man. Those people weren't fucking around. No, sir. They were the real fucking deal. All kinds of wacky surgeries. Basically, they made how-to tapes for like any wacky thing you could think of. For real. Just slicing people open and telling you what everything was and what they were doing. Hours and hours of it. Just stockpiled. Meetings, hearings, vacations too. They taped everything. I don't think they ever stopped taping. I tried to get through it all, but there was just too much, man. They were using some big words too, and I just didn't have the head for it. Probably still don't. They even had titty tapes, man. I almost forgot about that. They marked them fuck films. They must have fucked all the time, man. Probably why they couldn't have kids. Sorry, bad joke. I watched a few, but it was all just kind of wacky, you know? Not for Nate, though. That fucking guy was obsessed with those fuck films. He must have watched every one like 100 times. At one point, I remember he had like 10 fucking TVs set up in his room, and those fuck films would be on non-stop. Kind of fucked up. I was already so crazy into taping shit, I just went fucking nuts when LLU came around. They gave me all the blank tapes I wanted. And once LLU and Grandma left, I started taping everything. Games, shows, game shows. I went fucking nuts, man. I caught some great moments, though. I've watched some of those Wicked tapes like 100 fucking times. Just nuts. Some great games, man. Great plays. Great shows. Incredible scenes. Way I figured, they'd be gone forever if I didn't tape them. Buddies around town would be asking for copies. I had to get a few tapers going because there was always so much on at the same time. Yeah, things kind of calmed down once I moved into the basement. It was just too much sharing that house with Nate, man. Tough sharing anything with that guy. I would just be minding my own business, just walking by his room. He'd be like, "What the fuck do you think you're looking at?" I wasn't even looking at anything. Man, couldn't even share the fucking hallway. As soon as he would start talking crazy shit like that, I knew to just leave. I had tried to reason with the guy before, but that never went anywhere productive. I don't think I ever saw the guy in class. I would see him around the school all the time, always avoiding him, of course. He used to say that he ran the school. I would laugh it off like I am now, but part of me also believed he really did. I still believe it, I guess. Nate could talk his way in and out of anything. He was in with everyone, and yet not really with anyone. Almost like he ran all of them, you know? Fuck. I'm pretty sure I saw students, parents, and teachers tiptoeing out our house at all hours of the night. What a trip. Nate was working out all the time, man. I don't know where he got his energy from. Like he was a fucking machine, a robot. It didn't look like he enjoyed it or hated it, you know? He was just plugged right into it, just built to do it. He was an incredible wrestler. Poor guy. They kicked him out of every league and every style because he just fought too hard. Just made to fuck shit up, you know? He would try to catch me randomly off guard, try and pin me to the ground and make me beg for mercy. My head was on a fucking swivel back then. Every time he had me pinned, he'd try to get my pants down. Wacky, eh? I mean, the world is a tough place, man. Tons of tough people trying to pin you down. There's no doubt Nate knew that, and he was just looking out for me. Trying to toughen me up. Toughen us both up. Every beatdown he laid on me was him trying to help us out. I am too much of a softie, and that's probably going to come back and bite me one day. Oh well. Nate eventually moved on to team sports, and naturally he gravitated to the ones with the most contact. He'd play hockey all winter and football all summer. Just tailored to that perfect mix of skill and strength. He was a really good hockey player, but generally a puck hog. Probably why he really leaned into playing quarterback. He always called me a pussy for playing ball. I mean, he was probably right. But I don't think he ever even played it to see if he'd like it. It was just too slow and not enough roughhousing. His mind was made up. If he ever had a mind up there to begin with. I mean, anyone who loved contact sports as much as Nate was bound to get his bell rung a few too many times, if you know what I mean. It's just the nature of those chaotic sports. Anything can happen at any time and leave a guy really fucked up. Probably why I just wasn't into them so much. I got to hold on to the few remaining brain cells I got firing. But yeah, like I say, the game changed after the crash, man. We were all pretty bummed out after that. I think Ava took it the worst, maybe. Or yeah, that's probably because Britt left around that time too. Shit. Maybe it was good there wasn't so much taping going on then after all. Too many bad memories. Yeah, I think Ava was the first to bounce to the city. I mean, we've never really had much to say to each other. She only asked me to look after her alley cat, Alan. Even though he didn't really need any help. He didn't need much of anything from me. Kinda like you know who, now that I think of it. But he'd come around still. Actually, in my darkest and loneliest times in that basement, Alan would usually roll in to check on me. Make sure I was still being a worthless piece of shit. While he was out in the real world surviving, I was down in the basement taping. Rita, bless her heart, checked in on me too. But she was too smart for this town. And she knew she couldn't do nothing for me. Nate must have left after Ava, and then Rita after that. Yeah, that sounds about right. Old Tone hung back and made sure the town didn't go to shit. Yeah, it was probably after that first year in the basement that Rita convinced me to get back in the real world. I started right here, in this backyard, in the garden. Rita helped me out a bit, but I kind of remembered some stuff too. And before you know it, I had her looking like this, if not better. Made me feel good. Thought that Grandma would be proud, you know? I had this weird thing in my head at the time. I just didn't want to bug anybody or be bugged by anybody. A no-bug policy. But Rita convinced me that there were good ways to bug people. Like delivering things. So I got my old job back. Delivering pies around town. That really helped. I loved the looks on people's faces when I brought their pies around. Just happy to see me. Giving me tips. Made me feel good, you know? Made me feel good knowing I could bug people and they were totally okay with it. Made me more okay with people bugging me too. Yeah, eventually I had a few delivery jobs in town. I was bugging people so much, I barely had any time for taping. Eventually, word got out with coworkers and stuff that I had some wicked tapes. So I started making tapes for people too. Those tapes got around, I guess, and that's how I met the boys. Johnny and Donnie, man. Wicked dudes, man. Shit, I missed them. You'd like them. They never came up to the city once, man. Well, at least they never told me if they did. I mean, we kind of lost touch in the last couple years. They started fucking around with chicks, I guess. Good for them, I suppose. I do miss those times, though, man. We had some wild fucking times. I mean, nothing too crazy. Well, the show's got a little crazy. Johnny's the real mastermind, though. Me and Donnie were just his fucking backup band, really. Johnny had all the equipment. The jam space. He played bass better than Donnie and drums better than me. Man, he taught us all we know. He's unreal. Truly. But I mean, Johnny just kind of fucked around with us. He was in like 10 other bands and toured all around everywhere. He's the real fucking deal, man. Donnie and I were just tagging along. We were just happy to hang. I feel like our band was just Johnny's way of letting off some steam, you know? Our band wasn't really like any of his other bands. Johnny would set everything up the way he wanted it, and he'd call us over and show us how he wanted us to play, taught us the songs, kept her real simple, just straight down the road rock and roll, you know? Donnie and I were so pumped about it. We really tried hard and focused. And man, when we got going, fucking A, man. Those were some of the greatest times of my life. When we got in that groove, we didn't care about